Next up, we have Mike Dunbar. He is the Managing Director of Mamba Exploration. Great ASX code, M24. How can you forget that one? Mike, good to see you. And by the way, thanks for jumping off literally the drill rig, coming in to have a chat with us, and then you're going back. So he won't be here for the Zoom networking. So listen closely. Mike, over to you. Let's hear the story of Mamba.
Fantastic. Thanks, Terry, and good to be here. It gives me a short break from the RC rig, but not too long. So yeah, just like to introduce Mamba. I haven't done many conferences with Mamba, and so this is really one of the first ones to get the story out there. As with everyone, I've got to have one of those silly disclaimer slides. You can read at your pleasure. And I won't bore people with capital structure and corporate structure, other than to mention really three things. We listed February last year. So we've only got 61 million shares on issue. And importantly, over 19 million of those shares are still held under escrow and will be for another year. So while we haven't got many shares on issue, there's not very much trading shares out there either. But that's a really good position for us to be in. And they are all vendor or directors' shares, those 19 million under escrow. The other good thing about listing in February last year, and our birthday, I think, was 3 days ago, we've got $4.5 million in the bank, which gives us a really good position to actively really deliver on what we've set the foundation from last year and really start delivering on this year. So where are our projects and why do we select the projects and why do we like the area? Firstly, it may come as a bit of surprise to many that most of the large major discoveries, greenfields discoveries of gold in the last 20 odd years in Western Australia have all been either on the margins of the Yilgarn or outside the Yilgarn. And I'll just quickly run through some of them, not all of them, but just some of them. You've got Tropicana, you've got Gruyere, which is just inside the Yilgarn. You've then got Karlawinda, Caleron, Hemi, all gold discoveries, very large gold discoveries in the last 20 years, all outside the Yilgarn. And so on top of that, we're also exploring for not only gold, but base metals, copper and nickel and PGs as well. And a lot of the major base metal discoveries in Western Australia have also been on craton margins or in large structures. And they are Ullamar, Nova Bollinger, Savannah North, up in the Kimberley, and Winu. What you can see is where the major discoveries have been made over the last 20 odd years in Western Australia. Now, that's not to say there haven't been others, but they're the few that I've selected. So all of our projects, all in the red stars there, are all outside the Yilgarn or on the margins of the Yilgarn and near large regional crustal structures. That's really important when you're looking at these types of systems and exploring for these big systems. You want to be in an area where you've got the deep-seated plumbing, if you like, to get the fluids up that you need for these mineralising events to occur. The other interesting thing about our projects, and we've selected it very specifically, is there's a geographic spread. We've got the Kimberley Project, funnily enough in the Kimberley, Ashburton Project. Really, they are our winter projects, and we've got 2 summer projects. And the reason we've separated those so we can work in the southern projects, the Caleup Creek and Darling Range projects in summer when it's too wet and hot to be drilling and active up in the Yilgarn, in the
Pilbara,
Ashburton or Kimberley. And similarly, in winter when it's too cold and wet down south, we can run away and be active up in the Kimberley or in the Pilbara. So it gives us year-round news flow, and that's again a really specific reason why we selected the projects we've got. So running through the projects in a little bit more detail, and they are the Caleup Creek Gold Project. That's actually where I am right now. We are drilling down there. It's a gold project. There have been historical gold workings in the region. And it's an area that's been really forgotten and hasn't been looked at really since the 1989-ish, wow. And really hasn't had much exploration at all. So we've come in and done some confirmatory soil sampling, confirmed historical soil results and upgraded them. We've got up to 2.8 grams in soil samples from that project. Now that's unheard of in a lot of Western Australia now. People think it's been really explored and you need to go deep undercover. And really, Calliup Creek is showing that we don't need to. So we've got very good soil anomaly. We followed that up with RC drilling late last year. And of the 8 holes we got results back for so far, 7 of them hit significant mineralisation, including up to 15 metres at 2.2 from only 1 metre down hole. So really shallow, broad zones of mineralisation. Moving to the Darling Range project, it's outside Perth, near Julimar. We've identified a 6 kilometre long ultramafic body from mapping and geophysics. We've then done airborne EM over the area and identified the same coincident anomaly and the same with a PGE anomaly as well. So we've done some drilling there late last year and intersected sulfides in the right rocks. Still waiting for assay results. But those assay results, I'm not expecting to be substantial grades in them. But what it's identified is we have got sulfides in the right rocks. And that's really now as to how we move forward and where we explore going forward. Moving to the Ashburton Gold Project, funnily enough, in the Ashburton or Southern Pilbara Gold Project, and with some historical workings in the area. We've done some auger sampling there and got a substantial soil anomaly and auger anomaly that I'll show you in a moment. And last but not least, the Kimberley Project, a very, very large tenement package up in the Kimberley, where late last year we did some rock chip sampling and soil sampling for copper and silver at the Copper Flats project. And some really interesting copper grades in rock chip sampling of up to 34%. However, I will caution people that will have been superdune enriched, and so that would not be the types of grades you'd expect at depth. However, the high silver grades also, coincident high silver grades, does suggest we're close to a system that could be quite substantial. So it's a really interesting project, that one, and I'll go through that in a fair bit more detail as well. But that's a very large one. So what I'd do is just run through each of the projects very quickly. Calliup Creek in the Great Southern. It's a relatively small. We started with a relatively small tenement package there. We've identified a 4 kilometre long soil anomaly that wraps around a granite. And that's really broken up, and historically there's been 3 prospects in the area. The Northern Prospect, where there's been relatively a little bit of drilling and relatively narrow but higher grade gold. Central Workings, where the mineralisation seems to be a little bit more broad. And Southern Workings, where there've really just been a surface scratchings in the south. But the alteration in the southern area is much broader, and that's why we really like that area. It's got far more potential for a larger system. So we're focusing in on that black square there in the southern, near the Southern Prospect. So what we've done down there on this next slide really starts to identify what we've found so far from our soil sampling. We've identified 2 1,400 metre long soil anomalies. The northern one grades up to 1.7 and 1.3 grams are the highest soil samples we've had from the northern trend. And the southern trend, 2.8 and 1.9 grams in soils. So phenomenal grades in soils. And we've started drilling that area. So far we've tested about 140 metres of strike length. We've got 50-hole program, as I mentioned, 8 holes received so far, results received so far, and the RC rig is continuing literally as we speak. So it's a really interesting tenement package and really interesting area there where we've got 2 subparallel trends that have had very, very little drilling, and we've just started to scratch the surface of that area. What that looks like in one cross section is some 15 metres at 2.2 grams from 1 metre down hole. Now, we're not having to chase under deep cover here. The deepest hole we've drilled is actually 42 metres, 44 metres.
44, yeah.
That's the deepest hole we've drilled. We haven't had to chase it any deeper than that yet. And so we're really now just extending that along strike to identify the potential strike length before we start drilling deeper. you start looking at those intersections, and 15 at 2.2, 15 at just under 2.1 from 3 meters downhole, 16 at just over 1, 11 at 1.4, 10 at 1.3, and it hasn't been tested below 35 meters vertically. So that really shows that this area is just screaming to be drilled, and so we're continuing to drill that, and we'll continue to do that over the coming weeks and get those results back as soon as we possibly can. Moving to the Darling Range project, just outside of Perth, near the Julimar discovery, which I'm sure most people will have heard about. And if you haven't, have a look at what Chalice's share price has done over the last couple of years. It's gone gangbusters, and good luck to them. And that really just shows the potential of discoveries that can be made in these underexplored parts of Western Australia still. So where we are, the Black Hills tenement, we've got 3 tenements in the Darling Range. I'll only really talk about the Black Hills one at this stage. We're 30 kilometres from Julimar with a very, very similar signature. You can see Julimar zoomed in on Julimar on the right-hand side here. You can see a 6 kilometre long trend there. And just that southern area is the Gondaville intrusion, that's the only portion they've drilled so far. They're in the process now, they've literally just got access to the state forest, which restricts their access to the north, and they're now just starting to explore outside that. But our area, we've got a 6 kilometre long trend identified, and very, very similar size intrusion to the north of our tenement. So really interesting target area up there. The reason we like that area really is we've deliberately and methodically gone through and de-risked the asset as best we can before we start drilling. So what we've done is we've done soil sampling and auger sampling historically, and compiled all that information. And they've got a 6 kilometre long 2 PGE, so platinum plus palladium anomaly, and it highlights that northern priority target area. Coincident with that, we've also mapped on the ground an ultramafic body that extends coincident with that, and that's highlighted in the yellow dashed lines on the map. And followed that up with air mag and airborne EM, and identified conductors within the same horizon. So really importantly, de-risked it as much as we possibly could before we started to drill it. And so we drilled 2 holes late last year, and we were really encouraged that we've intersected sulfides, predominantly pyrrhotite, a little bit of pyrite, and some chalcopyrite as well. So we've hit the right sulfides. We don't know the grade of that area yet, but the sulfides we've intersected so far does not explain the VTEM or the EM anomaly, because the sulfides aren't connected. It would not show up on VTEM. So there is a conductive body there. We haven't drilled it yet, but we still have identified sulfides, which is a great step in the right direction.
2 minutes, Mike.
Yep, no problem. Very briefly, going through the Copper Flats project up in the Kimberley. That's a very large tenement package, which extends for about 100 kilometres from the northeast to the southwest. The black tenements are the ones we listed on originally, and got some very high grade copper and silver from rock chip sampling in that area, and really confirmed that late last year with some follow-up work. We then identified that the area to the north was still open, and so we pegged 2 more tenements, and from historical drilling and compilation of the historical drilling, historical sampling information, they've found that there's actually a 2 kilometre by 500 metre, 2 kilometre by 500 metre soil anomaly up to 5% copper and 5 grams silver in the soils, which has not been adequately drill tested and is open in all directions. There's actually a rock chip sample south of that anomaly up to 46% copper. Now, those copper grades, again, will be supergene enriched. So take those with a pinch of salt, but certainly it's nice to have grades like that to be able to help hone in where we're going. Last but not least, the Ashburton project in the southern Pilbara, northern Ashburton.
We are out of time, but I'll give you two secs to give us a quick overview.
No problem. these areas really need to see some big regional structures, and that's what we see running through our tenement. To the north, we identified a 300 metre by 300 metre auger anomaly with some high auger results, but also up to an ounce gold in rock chip samples, which really does look really encouraging as well. In summary, I wasn't too far over time. At Calliope Creek, we're aggressively drilling for gold in that area, and we've got some more activity going on that will continue until the winter rains start. Darling Range will be diamond drilling in Q1 of this year and doing some more work on the magnetic data that we have. In the Kimberley, we are preparing for the 2022 field season, and we'll be drilling the Ashburton mid-year as well. So active on four projects spread all across the state. So really interesting.
Mike, thank you so much. Get back to your drill rig, ladies and gentlemen. A very busy time for Mamba exploration, ASX code M24. Mike Dunbar, thanks so much for joining us today.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kerry, and thanks for everyone for tuning in. Cheers.